Well, it's time now for our international press review, and for that I'm joined in the studio now by Diptyque Laurent. Hi, Dipty.
Hi, Haxi.
Now, the resignation of Humza Yousaf, who is the Scottish leader, that resignation garnering a lot of attention in the Scottish press today.
Yeah, that's right. Before we get into the reactions, let's give you a little bit of background about what happened and why it's so significant. The Telegraph has an excellent explainer on the importance of on the significance of this political crisis in Scotland, essentially evoking what it calls an astonishing political miscalculation on the part of Humza Yousaf. He's ultimately triggered his own downfall, leading to the Scottish National Party, the pro-independence party, that is, leading to their second leadership crisis in 18 months. So what happened was he announced the end of the part of his minority government's power-sharing agreement with the Greens, a major asset on which he campaigned before becoming leader of Scotland. He sort of preempted the end of that relationship. The Greens were furious over his government abandoning certain key climate change targets, and they themselves were due to hold a vote on whether or not to stay in the coalition. He essentially preempted the probable ousting of power by resigning himself as Scottish First Minister. As you have here, Metro says rather cleverly, you've only got Yousaf to blame, it says.
I like that a lot. Not the resignation, but I like the headline.
Right.
I should hasten to add. What about the Scottish dailies? What do they say today?
Well, it depends on where you stand, really, when it comes to the Scottish press. But this is the Daily Record, a left-leaning paper critical of the SNP party, warning of a new brutal battle for Bute House. Bute House being the name of the residence of the Scottish First Minister. Several SNP members now positioning themselves to take over the party's leadership. This is from the National, which is the pro-independence party, evoking one possible name, John Swinney. He's actually the deputy First Minister, so he seems like the logical decision. But he says he's seriously considering a candidacy, but he hasn't confirmed if he wants to run or not. If he did, though, he says he would not kickstart that partnership with the Greens, which already was a sore spot for many within the SNP party. The Scottish Daily Mail, a paper that's a conservative tabloid, delivers a rather scathing reaction. It hails what it sees as the demise of the SNP and, in particular, its goal of independence. It hails the end of the party's, quote, arrogant domination of Scottish politics and welcomes the fact that the union is now safe, at least for a generation, thanks in part, the paper says, to Yousaf himself, who was a sort of unwitting ally to the case. And finally, you have Morton Moreland, a British cartoonist who uses a bit of hyperbole today. You see Humza Yousaf there saying he's stepping down, but it looks more like not quite the graceful exit from Scottish leadership that he might have hoped for.
More of a free-fall, you're right. Well, moving on now, Deepti. The entertainment website Deadline looks at a flamboyant Chinese financier who charmed Hollywood's elite and then vanished, leaving millions in debt. Sorry, leaving millions in debt. Yeah, I did read that, and it actually does sort of sound like the film with Leonardo DiCaprio. I think it was Catch Me If You Can, right? That's the one.
It sort of reads like a Hollywood film in itself. It's fascinating. It's a story about Chinese financier Kenneth Huang, a charismatic, charming personality who managed to ink deals with Hollywood's top brass and really lived a luxurious life of fast cars, private jet travel, luxury real estate, what have you. But he landed in Hollywood at a time when Hollywood also was looking to branch to the east. So he was sort of that connection between Hollywood and China, if you like, or the east. He set up a production company, was involved in various films, appeared to have, endless, endless money for investments, until quite literally it seemed that he didn't. Deadline recalls this 6-month investigation in this long read today. It's well worth a read if you have some time, about a man who vanished into thin air, leaving a litany of lawsuits owing tens of millions of dollars, mortgage defaults, unpaid office rent, unresolved disputes over one particular film franchise called XXX, starring Vin Diesel. He also helped facilitate Paramount's expansion into China, the streaming channel Paramount, for which it is ultimately paying the price today as it faces the financial crisis. So he had his hands in many pies, so to speak. It's well worth a read about a man who quite literally dined and dashed on Hollywood, it appears.
Would be ironic if Hollywood then comes knocking with asking for film rights.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. Dipti, you're ending today's press review with a focus on some of our favourite furry friends.
Yeah, well, mine at least, cats in particular. I know you share this love for cats, don't you, Haxie?
You know,
kind of.
From time to time. For the purposes of this press review, yes.
Well, it's a good story. The New York Times reports that a 6-year-old domestic cat, Galina, somehow slipped into her owner's Amazon return box and was shipped across the U.S. from Utah to California. She miraculously survived several days without food or water, possibly thanks to mild weather and one side of the box actually coming undone a little bit, which gave her some oxygen. It's believed she snuck into the box while the owner went to get some packing tape, and they didn't notice because the parcel itself was over 10 kilos, so they didn't really notice the extra weight. Anyway, she was shipped to an Amazon warehouse. Luckily there, a worker picked her up, took her to the vet, and thanks to the microchip, they were able to reunite her with her very worried owners.
She looks rather startled in that photo.
Yeah, I would be too if I was shipped to an Amazon warehouse.
I'm Dipti Laurent with a look through the international press today. Thank you very much.